All right, let's take a look at the two-handed backhand here. This player's pretty good. He's like a UTR 9. And you can tell even by this little slice, you can tell just how good of an understanding he has of what he's trying to do to the ball. Even by that little slice, it's just his awareness of how to put the racket through the ball, even in a casual situation, is really, really high. So that's something that you can just notice as you're watching a player as a coach. Is like, okay, this student has just a great understanding of how to move the racket through space. So let's watch a couple more of these backhands, and then we'll comment on some of the individual reps. Yeah, looking really good. Great balance. All right, so let's start with these. So first of all, obviously it's a great stroke. And a big reason for that is the lower body activation. So just like the forehand, the backhand starts from the ground, and there's a lot of balance in this. And you can see extremely good activation of the lower body. Knees are bent, legs are engaged, and the balance through this is phenomenal. So what we want to see on pretty much any shot is weight transfer toward the target. And when we're trying to drive this backhand, if you look at the back foot, watch the balance here. We've got our weight back here, and the weight is going to transfer through this foot and then through the ball into the court. And this is what's so important, is that when you watch tennis, it kind of looks like the hands are doing more than they are, but mostly the hands are being driven by upstream links in the chain, like the lower body here. And that is the real driver that drives consistency, because it's a lot easier to drive with your legs precisely than it is to use like the small muscles of the hand and the wrist to throw the racket super precisely. And so, especially if somebody's hitting hard at you, getting balance and driving your weight in the right direction, especially on a very simple stroke like the two-handed backhand, is really important for upping your miss rate and upping your consistency rate and lowering your miss rate. And so if you watch the weight transfer right through into the court. So that's the first big one, is feeling the balance, especially on this outside foot on the two-hander, feeling your balance and feeling that balance transfer. Again, let's just go back. Let's watch it real quick. Let's go back again. Let's watch it in slow motion. So the way he activates that outside foot, really good balance, and just cleanly drives his weight through that shot. That's number one. Okay, so now let's look at the probing, which is better at the baseline than it is on these approach shots. Let's go back to the baseline reps. So the probing on these baseline reps, and again, this is going to change based on your particular swing, but for him, you'll notice perfect string angle is right here. He's capable of pushing here, he's capable of pulling here. So for him, this is the perfect spot. And so he's probing the ball into here. This doesn't matter. You don't have to look at contact. What matters is that he saw the ball clearly here, and now his head is still. So this, if you ever see some people looking behind contact, that's completely fine. Completely fine visual behavior. You'll notice what really matters is that gaze is still during contact. Doesn't actually matter that you're looking at contact. It matters that your gaze is still, and you'll notice he does have that. So just like the forehand, sees the ball come in, fully commits to the swing, and his gaze is still now. His gaze is still, and so that's why he executes the shot. Doesn't matter that he's not actually looking at contact. You'll see that on the tour sometimes too. So that's totally fine, in case you're wondering. Okay, so let's look at this probing again. And again, the probing is related to your legs. So you're trying to feel your balance, and you want to drive and press into the court, and you're going to have to probe the ball into a spot such that when you press into the court, the stroke makes sense. And it's just something you have to learn for your particular swing and how you particularly like to move the racket. Where is it in front of you where, if I do this, the string angle comes out perfect? And he knows exactly that spot, which is why when he's grinding these backhands, his string angle is almost always perfect. He probes the ball into this spot. You'll notice it's not nearly as far forward as the forehand. And this is a little bit stylistic. There are different ways to hit the backhand. But the forehand's almost always out here, whereas lots of people will hit high-quality backhands from a little bit closer to the body. This hand restricts the racket a little bit, having the second hand on the body, so it's always going to be closer than on the forehand. But then there's variety in this area for depending on your particular style. Again, what matters isn't some hard and fast rule about where you have to hit it. What matters is, do you know what it feels like to transfer your weight, press with your left hand, since he's right-handed, press with your left hand, and have your string angle consistent. If you know what that feels like, you probe the ball into that spot. It doesn't matter exactly where it is. Okay, so then what's going wrong on the approach shots? And what's going wrong is it's mostly just a slight probing issue, where so again, great balance, right? We see the back leg pressing through towards the target. That's exactly what we want. But the probing issue here is that this spot, the ball is just a little too low. It's actually very difficult for the hands to like put this ball up and through. And that's why he's hitting these down into the net. He's probing this, very similarly to when he's back here. And the string angle, it doesn't, there's not, the way gravity works, you have a lot more time for the ball to go up and down when you're at the baseline, and a lot less time when you're at net. He's hitting the ball from here. When you hit the ball from back here, there's all of this extra time for gravity to act on the ball and push it down into the court. And on a flatter shot, that really, really matters because topspin is not acting on the ball. And so you just can't quite use the same trajectory here as you can at net. And so we're going to hit a couple into the net before he figures this out. We're going to watch a couple more reps here. Again, from the baseline, we have really good margin over the net. Great balance. Good, great weight transfer. You can see that back foot flying up. Now it's getting a little bit better. Still very low over the net, but still pretty good. It's getting good. Here we go. And so you'll notice attacking these balls early at chest height makes a massive difference in his level of execution here. Because when you're hitting flat and you're hitting inside the court, every inch of height that you have, or every centimeter of height, depending on your location, really, really, really matters for fault tolerance. And so now he's really stepping in, attacks it super early. And there we go. And now, since we're getting this at waist height, it's so much more fault tolerant. And you really should try to avoid playing aggressive backhands at knee height unless you have an exceptionally heavy topspin backhand, because it's just so difficult to hit a knee height flat shot with any sort of consistency and aggression, as opposed to a knee height flat forehand inside the court, or a knee height forehand inside the court, where you can create a lot of rotations and bring that ball up and down. So anyway, this is the same thing as the baseline with the probing, and it's the same thing as all your approach shots with the probing, is find this exact spot. And this is harder to do when you're moving forward than it is when you're moving sideways, because you are moving into the ball while the ball is moving to you. But you'll notice when he finds this exact spot, the shots come out perfect. Okay, last thing I want to talk about here is the hands, and I want to just look at how much extension he has. So we talked about horizontal shoulder adduction on the forehand and how you really press through at the end there. The backhand is the same way. It's not horizontal shoulder adduction, but it's the same thing, where what we're trying to visualize here is we're trying to visualize a line through the ball this way. So wherever we're aiming over here, there's a line through the ball, a vector right here, and you're going to watch the racket move through that hitting zone, get driven all the way through that hitting zone. Now, if you're jammed, it won't look like this, but on every backhand where you have a lot of time on these aggressive shots, you should see this sort of a thing. You'll see this with all the best players. You should see this sort of a thing with all of this extension out in front of you. What you're trying to do is press all the way through that ball. Press all the way through that ball. Imagine a line through the ball, and then drive that racket all the way through that ball. And that's what really makes this stroke work. Yeah, and these are very pretty now. Really attacking it, taking it chest height. And this is the thing, is you might be like, man, my backhand's pretty good. Like I feel like I'm hitting it clean. Why can't I hit it? If you attack it slightly quicker with your feet and you get it chest height instead of knee height, that makes all the difference for your percentages. Okay, so the four things from this. Number one is balance on the back foot and then transfer the weight through towards the target. That's number one. Number two is probing, just like on every shot. Find the spot in front of you where the shot makes the most sense and track it into that spot every time. Good. Number three is trying to attack your flat shots. If you have a flat forehand, by the way, this applies equally, although most people hit more topspin on their forehand. Trying to attack your flat shots as high as possible, preferably chest height, when you're hitting inside the court, because you don't have enough time for gravity to pull that ball down. So taking your flat shots, attacking them, attack them high, attack them high, attack them high, and go for a little bit less and a little bit more margin, hit a little bit slower if you have to hit it at knee height. And then the fourth and final thing, extension, extension, extension. We're visualizing the vector through the ball and we're throwing our hands through that vector, driving all the way through it. We're not yanking across the body early. We're using our balance and our hands to drive straight through that ball with great extension towards the other side of the court. Watch that one more time right here. Boom. Look at that extension. Look at how through the court he goes. His racket has barely even come around his body yet. It's almost entirely back to front here. Driving straight through the court like that. Perfect. Okay, and quickly we'll just watch the best in the world do it right here. Watch the point first, and comment on some of the backhands from this point. Okay, now he does lose this point, but you know, when you're a really good player playing against a really good player, you're going to hit really good shots and then lose. It just happens. That's not the point. Okay, so number one is you know, the visual understanding of where this backhand is trying to be, probes into the right spot, and if you watch the lower body here, this is something that Djokovic is the best in the world at. Loads on that back foot, nice and balanced, nice clean weight transfer through into the court, and if you watch the hands, full extension. Look at this extension through the contact zone, nice fault tolerant contact zone, makes the return. Okay, now if we watch this next one, it's two things we talked about. Number one, you attack the ball at shoulder height so you can hit it flat. And number two, again, lower body balance, drive with your legs into the court. It's just beautiful there. I mean, that's just something Djokovic is the best in the world, is these backhands kind of at the end of his range, hitting them with high quality. So, got the balance here. Fully balanced on this back leg. This back leg is going to fire through towards this target. And the back leg's going to fire through this way, which is why it's going to fly around his body. And also, he's leaning through it so he can attack this ball at chest height. Watch this slow frame by frame real quick. And again, look at the extension right through, imagining a line through the ball towards this target. Racket flies through that line. So yeah, that's just beautiful. And then here's one more thing we talked about that's really important. Don't go for broke on a knee-height backhand. It's just not a good idea. And this is something Djokovic does amazingly well, is when he's forced to play these knee-height backhands, he doesn't go for that much. He puts it high and deep, high percentage shot. He knows the ball's reasonably flat, so you can't rip it. There's just not enough time for the gravity to bring it up and down. Great neutral ball right there. And then, you know, that one came out a little weak, and, you know, he's playing a really good player, so he lost the point. But anyway, that's the best in the world, doing all the things we just talked about. This is our student. He's like a UTR 9 or so also a very, very good player doing those things. That should help you on your backhand, and let me know what you think.